Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about some great albums that I'm still looking for. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So I've done a couple of these videos now where I look at albums that I was still looking for. And the interesting thing is kind of going back through some of those other videos, over the next, say year after I release a video, I tend to find a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for. So some of the stuff I've excluded from my list are things that I know are going to be super hard to find, which is like, VG Plus or near mint version of the RL pressing of Led Zeppelin 2, or like a Beatles Butcher cover, things like that I know are going to be either like super, super expensive or ultra rare that I'm probably not going to find. Everything I've got on my list is all stuff that is out there. It's available. It's just a matter of hunting it down and finding it for a good price. Because I have been pretty lucky over the last couple of years. A lot of my grails and stuff like that, I've found most of them. But like I said, I'm still missing some of the stuff that I've got on my want list that I've had on my want list for years and years now. And just like I said, for one reason or another, just either like missed out when they were first released, or when they do randomly pop up, they sell pretty quick before I can get a copy of it. The first one is one that I didn't even really know about until I think it was earlier this year I started seeing anything about it. It looks like a really good set. I'd love to have a copy of it, but this is Black Sabbath, the 10-Year War. This came out back in 2018. I think it was just a European release. This is all the Ozzy era Black Sabbath albums. So you got everything from 1970 to 1978. I think is what, 8 studio albums. I'm a huge fan of Black Sabbath, especially those Ozzy years. Some incredible albums, incredible music in there. This looks like a really cool box set. It's all on colored vinyl. It's a set I've absolutely I would love to have a copy of. I've almost pulled the trigger on it a couple of times. I found good copies, but they tend to be pretty expensive. They're like $1,200 plus if you buy a copy here in the U.S. I have found some copies overseas in like Germany and in France, but and they're cheaper. I can generally get one for about $700 to $800, but even that is a lot of money for me to use to drop down on a box set. Even though I do love these albums, I already have copies of all of them, so it's nothing I absolutely have to have in my collection. But like I said, this is a really cool looking box set, and I just love to have these albums. The next one is an album that I was offered a copy at a really great price a few years ago. I think it was probably maybe 3.5 or 4 years ago. Someone offered to sell me a copy. I ended up turning him down, and I've regretted it ever since. But this is the Beatles, Let It Be Naked. This came out back in 2003. It's an incredible album. This is very much a stripped down, remixed version of Let It Be. Probably my favorite album by the Beatles. And to be honest, this should have been included in the Beatles Let It Be box set that came out, was it a year or so back. And, had it been, I probably would have, there's no probably about it. I definitely would have bought the box set had it been included. I ended just to go with just the remastered version of the album, which sounds great, but Let It Be Naked is it's my favorite version of this Beatles album. And when it was offered a few years ago, I want to say they were going to sell it to me it was like super cheap compared to what it goes for now, but I want to say it was like 60 or 70 bucks. And I kind of went back and forth, and it's like, it's a lot of money to spend on an album. And, now if you look on Discogs, it's like $200 plus for that album. And like I said, I really should have took advantage of that offer when it was given to me a couple years ago. An album that I think I've included now in every single one of these videos I've talked about, and I still don't have a copy of it, and I still want a copy of it, but it is an EP that was released back in, I think it was 2010 or 2011 when it came out, and it wasn't available on vinyl until 2020. But it's an EP by one of my favorite bands of all time, Blink-182. It's called Dogs Eating Dogs. And so back in 2020 when this was released, I was working midnights at the time. I slept through the release of it. They announced so the band announced it, and it went up for pre-sale. I think it was the same time that it went up for pre-sale. And then it almost immediately sold out. There was only 1,500 copies of it pressed across 3 different variants. Sold out really quick. I think I woke up, saw the announcement, got on their website probably about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes after it was first announced, and all the copies were gone. And ever since then, this thing sells for $200 plus. This is another album where it took a while for it to kind of creep up. I think when it first went up for sale on Discogs, it was like $100 to $120. And even at that time, I was like, yeah, I love the EP, but do I love it enough to drop that much money on it? Now, of course, I wish I would have grabbed it because that's like $200 to $250 on Discogs now. So it was probably about a year or so back, maybe about a year and a half ago. I was at one of my local record stores, had a copy of the next album in my hand, looked at it, knew I wanted it, but I thought to myself, oh, it must have been reissued if it's in the record store. I'll just grab it next time I see it. And of course, I haven't seen a copy of it since then. But it's the soundtrack for one of my favorite movies of all time, High Fidelity. It wasn't available, so the movie was released in 2000. It wasn't available on vinyl, I think, until 2016. And when I saw it in my local record store, it must have just been like a random, like really small quantity reissue that they did for it. And I haven't seen it since then. Now if you go on Discogs, I think last time I saw it on Discogs, it was about $100. Great movie, incredible soundtrack, but it's an album I don't want to spend that much money on. I will eventually if that's all I can get, but I would assume that eventually this thing's going to get reissued. Way back in 1999, I know it doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it does to a lot of other people out there. But it was a really great alternative rock album that was released by a band called Stroke 9. The album was called Nasty Little Thoughts. I think it was one big hit that came off. It was Little Black Backpack, and I wasn't a huge fan of that song, but I thought the rest of the album was absolutely fantastic. I'd love to have a copy of it on vinyl. I didn't even know this thing was pressed on vinyl until I think it was about sometime last year. I got on Discogs and looked and realized it had been pressed in 2018. I never really heard anything about it when it came out, and of course it was never a huge album, so that's probably why. But it was it's something that very rarely pops up on Discogs. I think the last time it sold on Discogs was earlier this year. I want to say it was like early part of the summer. Sold for about $165, which is typically about the going rate for it, anywhere from between $150 to $200, which is my absolute top end that I would ever pay for an album. It's got to be an album I absolutely love, which is not this album. I've got it on CD, which I'm fine owning it on CD, but I'd love to have a copy of it on vinyl. If I can get it for like around retail price, it's one I would definitely grab. So hopefully it will eventually get reissued. I guess there's kind of a funny story with the next release. It's an album that I never really paid that much attention to. I was always kind of a casual fan of this part of the artist's career, so I never wanted to pick it up. And then I found a copy for a friend a few years back, listened to it after that, and then of course realized how much I enjoyed the album. And of course I've never seen another copy of it out in the wild. But it's Ozzy Osbourne, Speak of the Devil. This album was released back in 1982. I think the last pressing was 1987. And I'm really shocked it hasn't been reissued since then. It probably should have been included in the Ozzy box set that came out a few years ago. But I was at a local record store. This is probably 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. And I knew one of my friends was a huge Ozzy fan. I was always more of a Black Sabbath Ozzy fan than an Ozzy solo career fan. And I guess I never really realized that it was all Sabbath stuff that he did on the album. I know it was recorded during, I think it was the Bark of the Moon tour that the album was recorded on. But I saw a copy, knew one of my friends wanted it. It was less than $20. This thing was probably, I'd say VG plus to near mint. Looked absolutely pristine. Beautiful looking copy of it. I got it. I knew he wanted it. And then I listened to it after that and realized my mistake. I probably should have just kept it for myself because I haven't seen another copy of it. Every other copy I've seen of this album is either like super expensive, I'm talking like $80 plus, or it just completely beat to hell. And, it's something I'm not going to spend, more than a couple dollars on because it's all scratched up and the cover's torn. And, it's something I'm not going to spend money on. So I'd love to see it get reissued, but it probably won't happen. I'll probably have to wait to finally track down a good looking copy of it. An album that's really grown on me over the last few years. I was never a huge fan of this band. I loved the first couple of albums, and then really kind of lost interest after that. So I never really thought about picking up this album when it got reissued. But it's definitely grown on me. I'd love to find a copy of it. The album is called The Science of Things by Bush. It came out back in 1999, but it wasn't pressed on vinyl until 2016. I think it was still available there for a while. And now it's I haven't seen a copy of it in, I think the last time I saw a copy of it for under $100 was back in, I think it was like 2018, late 2018 when I saw that copy. Haven't seen it since then. You go on Discogs, this thing is sold for $200 plus pretty regularly. It started to kind of creep down over the last couple of months, so maybe I'll grab a copy of that in the next few months. We'll see if I can get one. But like I said, Bush was, I love the first couple of albums. I love 16 Stone. I love Razor Blade Suitcase. But when Science of Things came out in '99, my music interest had really changed, and I didn't really follow their career after that. And then when they reissued, it was a Record Store Day release a couple years ago they did of one of the later Bush albums. That might be the Sea of Memories. I finally started getting back into the band and really kind of going through all their other albums I never really got around to checking out. And I realized how much I love all the band's albums. And this is one of the ones that's eluded me. It's available on vinyl. I haven't been able to find a copy of it, but I'd love to have it in my collection. And then the last album I got on my list is one that's eluded me multiple times since it was released back in 2018. An incredible album, one of my favorite ska albums of the 1990s. It's called Why Did They Rock So Hard by Real Big Fish. Just an incredible album. And I actually saw Real Big Fish on that tour back, I think it was 1998 when I saw him on that tour. And I love this album. This wasn't available on vinyl until I think it was 2018 was when it was released on vinyl. And it was only released through the band's website, super small run, sold out really quick. I wasn't able to grab a copy of it. And then mysteriously, without warning, without any kind of announcement or anything like that, twice since 2018, it's been magically restocked on the band's website. And both times I've got on and found it 2 days after. It was literally 2 days after it went up for sale. Both times that was on the band's website, right? It ended up actually getting talked about on Discogs. That's how I saw that had been reissued or restocked. Go on the band's website literally right afterwards, and of course they're sold out. So both times I missed out on that album. And of course now you go on Discogs and it's like several $100s, like everything else I've talked about. It's really blown up in price, and I'm somebody that, man, I really have to love an album. If it's over like $70 to maybe $100, is pretty much my max to pay for a used record. I really have to love it. It's really got to be one of my favorite albums to spend more than that. This is definitely an album I would pay more than that for. But when I see it for over $200, man, it just, as much as I love that album, I've got it on CD. It's something I can stream and listen to, and I don't have to have it. But man, if I could get it for closer to $100 or even retail price, which on their website when it ever gets restocked, it's like $40, which is a great price for that album. It's really kind of hard to spend the $200 plus on it whenever it does end up on Discogs. So I guess you could say those 8 albums are like my grails of grails. There's stuff that I know is available out there, but it's just a matter of tracking it down and paying the money for it, which is, it's a lot. And that's kind of the thing that stopped me. I'm trying to cut back on the amount I spend every month on records, and spending the money that they want for these releases would definitely break my budget there for a couple of months. But I don't know. We'll see. The end of 2024, I'll do a video and see if I end up getting any of these albums. Hopefully I get some of them for a really good price and not spend the super inflated price they are in Discogs. But drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Or what are some of the albums you've been searching for years, haven't been able to track down? Love to know what you guys are looking for. But if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.